So last year, I built a data-backed Best Picture predictor, which is a simple point system that you can use to predict the Best Picture Oscar winner. I'm pretty pleased that the point system got it right last year by predicting Everything Everywhere All at Once as the winner. But I still think we can keep fine-tuning the scoring system to be even better at predicting the winner. In my scoring system, films are assigned points based on a selection of variables, including award wins before the Oscars, number of Oscar nominations, release date, and reception of the film after release. Each of these variables are worth more or less points depending on their correlation to predicting the winner. And the film with the highest total amount of points is the most likely to win the Oscar for Best Picture. I've been taking a look at your comments to see what other factors I might not have considered. So, as always, let's start with a timeline, leading all the way up to the Oscars, starting with the DGAs on February 10th, the BAFTAs on February 18th, the SAG Awards on February 24th, the PGAs on February 25th, and finally the Oscars on March 10th. You'll notice that this year looks slightly emptier without the Writers Guild Awards, which have been pushed back to after the Oscars because of the strikes last year, but usually they would be featured as well. One thing that I have mentioned before but haven't factored into the scoring system is that awards that happen close to the Oscars are massively influential and could potentially swing undecided voters. And so this comment is right. My scoring system doesn't really reflect the significance of timing for the awards before the Oscars. In the current system, all the Guild and BAFTA Best Picture winners are given 1 point each. But to take into account timing, points for award wins should instead increase as we get closer to the Oscars. So for this year, I'm changing the points distribution so that it scales according to timing. A DGA win still merits 1 point, then the BAFTA winner the next weekend gets 2 points, and the SAG and PGA winners each get 3 points. Of course, these points aren't fixed, because they're specifically tiered to match this year's schedule. Next year, the points distribution might be different when the Writers Guild Awards are back in the mix. One thing to note before we move on. While this points distribution is way more representative of the increasing amount of influence other awards have on the Oscars race, it does mean that the BAFTAs are getting an extra point compared to last year, which adds more weight to the BAFTA Best Film winner. But historically, the BAFTA Best Film has been pretty hit or miss at predicting the Oscar Best Picture winner. So we'll see, but it might not be worth an additional point. The other change I wanted to make this year was on film reception. First off, I'm removing the point for films that have a low critics and high audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, because I don't think it really correlates to a Best Picture win. And then, many of you have had some qualms about using Rotten Tomatoes to represent audience reactions, and instead suggesting using Letterboxd or IMDb to measure sentiment. So this year, you'll be pleased to note that I am adding both of them to the scoring system, just to test it out. Because Letterboxd and IMDb each represent different segments of audiences, Letterboxd being slightly more cinephile-oriented, and IMDb representing more of a mass opinion. Films with 4 or higher on Letterboxd get 1 point, and films with 8.0 or higher on IMDb get another. With these updates, let's now allocate this year's points. Feel free to pause the video and zoom in to see how the points were distributed. And so, probably to no one's surprise, it looks like Oppenheimer is most likely to win Best Picture this year. Interestingly, this year's race doesn't seem as close as last year's race. Some films, as you can see, have extremely low totals, and there are a couple with really high total scores. Meanwhile, last year's race seemed to have a more even spread of points across the films. Also this year, there are no Best Picture nominees with less than 4 nominations, unlike last year, where there were 2 nominees with less than 4 nominations. It makes me think that this year's Best Picture nominees are maybe more evenly matched or at least celebrated than last year's set. I wonder if that's because of changes in Academy membership, or whether the films released in 2023 were of a higher standard across many disciplines, which means we had a really good year of film. Regardless, we'll soon see whether this Oppenheimer prediction is correct. In the meantime, I'm doing another audience-voted Best Picture ballot, The link to vote is in the description, and voting ends this weekend, Sunday, March 3rd at 11:59 p.m. PST. I'm planning on releasing the results right before the Oscars. As always, I'd love to know what you think. What do you think about the changes I've made to the point system? And should a BAFTA Best Film win be worth 1 or 2 points? And how would you measure audience sentiment? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and subscribe for more spiels in the future.